So for March, or for the third block, we have our curved piecing. It also introduces some applique that I want to show you as well. So it's not a hard one, it's just doing a very gentle curve. So, very first thing we have on our pattern is that we're going to make some freezer paper pieces, and I have, this sheet is what you will get with each of your blocks, with your block. And it has this little mark here and here for the centers, and you really do want to mark those as we cut them out. Just fold them in half and crease it will work just fine. So I took my piece of paper and I trace it onto freezer paper. This is the freezer paper here that I already have ironed down. So once you get it traced, then we're going to take it and we're going to iron it to our fabric. These are our 2 squares that are the 8.5 by 10. And you're going to place one on here first, and we're going to cut it out. And then you'll take the next one, peel the paper off the pieces, place it down, and you'll get a secondary, so you get 2 here and 2 here. And it's just a nice way of doing it. The next step is that we take our curve, our big curve on our page, and we cut it out of freezer paper. I iron it down to my big 8-inch squares, and we're just going to cut just that little bit right there, and that's going to give us all 4 of our curved pieces, which will look like this. Here are our pieces that we're going to sew together for our gentle curves. What we want to do first is to mark the centers of each. So I fold my piece in half and I crease that. You can crease it with your finger. You can mark it with a pen, whichever you'd like. And I will do the same thing with my curve. I'm going to crease that. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to put the background on top of my accent. And I'm going to mark that center. So I'm going to then mark with a pen. I will pin that right there, and then I will take and put the pen on the end here, and then the pen on the end here. That just marks it, holds it while we're going to sew it. You can put as many pins as you need to get this curve to fit, but as you see, if we have this curve here, we can manipulate it so that it will fit really nicely. And so once you get that done, you can sew this very gentle curve. Then we're going to press the seam toward the background piece. Okay, so now I've added a few more pins across the top. I've got it all lined up. So now I'm going to take and I'm just going to sew my 1/4 inch seam all the way around. And so, hold my thread here so it doesn't pop out. And I'm going to just sew this nice gentle curve. And now we can press this out like that. Okay, so here is our unit, and we make 4 of these. We place them together as the picture shows, like such and like such, all the way around. The one thing about this block is that we need to sew all of the block together and put the block frames on before we do the applique. To do the applique, I have done fusible applique on 2 of them, but I'm going to also show you another way of folding the edges back underneath. This is our template. I traced this onto the fusible web. I then ironed the fusible web down to the wrong side of my fabric. Then I cut it out right on the line with a rotary cutter or scissors, whichever you prefer. Rotary cutter, I think, gives you a cleaner cut. And I have all 4 of my patterns done that way so that I could make another block. And then these are the pieces all cut out with a fusible on the back. Then we're going to take and peel the fusible off the back or the paper off the back of the fusible, and so that's going to allow me now to put these down onto the block. Okay, once we have our block framed, that gives us the seam allowances and everything that will allow for these pieces to go down. You take the freezer paper and you cut out your curves, your small little curves, and we're going to iron that down to our piece, lining it up right into the seams there. So then we're going to take our pieces and we're going to lay these down with our paper taken off the back so that our bottom edges match up. Like such. And then at that time now we line them up so that they're all nice and even, spaces between them are nice and even, and then you would just iron it down. So once I have my pieces ironed down, I remove my freezer paper piece. I then buttonhole stitched around each of the pieces that we have here on the block. Method of doing the applique, if you don't like to have the raw edges out there and you don't like to do hand applique, because the pattern pieces are big enough that you can do hand applique any other way of doing it you want, but I can't do hand applique. My hands won't let me hold and work right. So I chose another method to show you, and that is that you cut the pieces out, you trace the pieces onto your freezer paper, cut the freezer paper out, iron it down to the wrong side of our fabric, and then I cut it a 1/4 inch larger. I'm gonna have to step down here. So I'm gonna use my ruler and I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch larger all the way around to add my seam allowance. And to do the curve, you just can start the ruler here at a 1/4 and then kind of gently curve the ruler around. Then we're going to take it over to the iron again. And we're going to peel off our freezer paper piece, but we're going to put it upside down now so that the shiny side is up. And I'm going to take the edge of my iron and I'm going to use the edge of my iron to roll the fabric over onto the freezer paper, and it will stick. Then I'm going to do the bottom little edge here, flip that up, and then I can do the sides, and the sides will just fold right over. And then do the other side. So there are our pieces all prepared with no raw edges. When you would applique these down the same way, you could do hand applique, you could do the buttonhole stitch like I would do. And if you do that, you would need to cut the back of the piece out to take the freezer paper out, but the freezer paper will then come out very easily. Another way you can do that is once you have these pressed really, really well, you can spray starch it and then take the paper out, and you don't have to cut the back of the piece out, but you have all your edges already folded over for you. And so then you can take the pieces and just lay them down right onto your applique piece. So just to give you another way of doing the applique for that block. So after you have all of your blocks ironed down, you can buttonhole stitch them or any way you want. You can top stitch them, and then the block would be done. Of course, this block isn't quite finished yet, but give me time, I'll get it done.